This week in NASCAR just feels different. Not because of a controversial finish or a heated rivalry, but because two separate situations unfolded almost simultaneously, and both of them carry real consequences that are going to echo through the rest of the 2025 season. One driver physically cannot get back behind the wheel of his car. Another driver was told, in no uncertain terms, that he is not allowed to. These are not minor storylines buried in the footnotes of a race recap. These are front-page, garage-wide conversations that are changing the way people look at this sport, at these drivers, and at what it actually means to compete at the highest level of NASCAR right now. Both situations are unfolding in real time, both have significant implications for standings, for opportunities, and for careers, and both deserve to be understood fully before any conclusions are drawn. So let's get into it, all the way through, because every single detail here matters. Let's start with the story that is genuinely difficult to talk about from a pure fan perspective. Alex Bowman, the driver of the iconic number 48 Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports, has been officially ruled out for 3 additional Cup Series races: Darlington, Martinsville, and Bristol. When you combine those 3 races with the time he had already missed before this announcement, the total absence now sits at a minimum of 6 weeks out of the car. 6 weeks. For a driver competing at the top level of NASCAR, representing one of the most storied and successful organizations in the history of the sport, 6 weeks is not a minor setback. It is a season-altering development with consequences that are already visible in the standings. The cause is not a crash injury. It is not a broken bone or a concussion in the traditional sense. Alex Bowman has been diagnosed with vertigo, and while that word might sound less dramatic than a high-speed wreck, the reality of what vertigo does to the human body makes it arguably more dangerous for a race car driver than many physical injuries. Vertigo causes severe dizziness, disorientation, and a complete disruption of spatial awareness. It affects balance at a fundamental neurological level. Now take those symptoms and place a person inside a race car traveling at over 180 miles per hour, surrounded by 39 other vehicles, navigating inches of clearance at tracks like Darlington and Bristol. The math simply does not work. A driver who cannot trust his own sense of balance and spatial orientation has no business being on that racetrack, not because of a lack of toughness, but because the risk to himself and to every other competitor on that track would be completely unacceptable. Hendrick Motorsports has made their position absolutely clear: they are not rushing Bowman back under any circumstances. This is a decision that reflects exactly what a professional racing organization at the top of the sport should look like. The priority is not saving a playoff run. The priority is not protecting points. The priority is making sure that when Alex Bowman returns to that number 48 Chevrolet, he is physically capable of driving it at full capacity without putting himself or anyone else in danger. That is the only standard that matters, and HMS is holding to it firmly. The timeline from here is important to understand. With the Easter weekend off-week falling immediately after Martinsville, the earliest realistic date for Bowman's return to competition is the Kansas race on April 19th. And even that date carries no guarantees. Vertigo does not operate on a fixed recovery schedule. There is no hard medical deadline that says a patient will be symptom-free by a specific date. His return depends entirely on how his body responds to treatment and rest, and that is a timeline that neither Bowman, nor Hendrick Motorsports, nor anyone else can control with certainty. The standings situation is stark. Bowman currently sits 36th in the Cup Series standings, already 94 points below the playoff cut line. The odds of mounting a successful playoff campaign from this position, given the races already lost and the uncertainty around his return, are extremely slim. But it is critical to say this plainly: the conversation about playoffs is no longer the relevant conversation. When a driver is dealing with a medical condition that directly affects his ability to operate a vehicle safely, the health outcome has to take precedence over every other consideration. Hendrick Motorsports understands that. The serious NASCAR fan base understands that. The only story worth telling right now is whether Alex Bowman comes back healthy, fully recovered, and ready to compete. Everything else is secondary. This sport has a long and sobering history of what happens when drivers push through conditions they should not be racing through. The results, in some cases, have been catastrophic. Bowman is a driver who has invested years building his career inside one of NASCAR's most competitive organizations. The smart move, the only move, is to take the time that is needed, complete the recovery properly, and return to the number 48 when the body is ready and not a moment before. Now let's talk about the second situation, because this one is completely different in nature and carries a different kind of weight. Daniel Dye, a young driver competing in the NASCAR Truck Series with Collage Racing, has been indefinitely suspended by NASCAR. No return date. No timeline. No public countdown toward reinstatement. Here is exactly what happened. During a live stream, Dye made comments referencing IndyCar driver David Malukas while opening trading cards. The specific language he used during that broadcast was reviewed by NASCAR officials, and the determination was made that his comments constituted a violation of Section 4.3c of the NASCAR rulebook, the section that explicitly prohibits public statements that disrespect or target individuals based on race, gender, religion, or similarly protected characteristics. This was not a borderline situation that required extensive debate to interpret. NASCAR reviewed the content, applied their rulebook, and came down with a suspension that carries no defined end date. What makes this situation particularly significant is not just NASCAR's action, but the speed and decisiveness of Collage Racing's response. Dye's own team did not wait for a formal directive. They did not hedge or issue a carefully worded statement suggesting they were monitoring the situation. They suspended Daniel Dye immediately upon learning about the incident. That kind of institutional response is important because it signals that the team standards and NASCAR standards are aligned, and that professionalism, in every public forum a driver uses, is a non-negotiable baseline expectation, not a suggestion. For the Truck Series race at Darlington, NASCAR veteran A.J. Allmendinger has been named as the replacement driver in Dye's truck for Collage Racing. Allmendinger is a full-time Cup Series competitor with the organization, which makes this a clean in-house transition. He has not raced in the Truck Series since 2021 at Watkins Glen, but he brings 14 career Truck Series starts and a deep reservoir of experience across multiple NASCAR disciplines to that seat. His presence in the truck for Darlington is a genuinely notable development for that race, and his experience level means he will be competitive from the first lap. Dye issued a public apology following the suspension. In that statement, he acknowledged that he did not think before speaking, said he did not intend to cause harm, and accepted that intention does not eliminate impact. Public opinion on that apology has been and will continue to be divided, and that is a completely fair outcome. What is not subject to debate is NASCAR's official position, which has been communicated clearly through the indefinite suspension and the mandatory sensitivity training requirement that must be completed before any reinstatement can even be considered. Dye's career context matters here because it puts the full weight of this suspension into perspective. He currently sits 13th in Truck Series standings, already 88 points behind Series leader Chandler Smith. Since his Truck Series debut in 2023, he has accumulated 49 career starts, posting 2 top 5 finishes, 10 top 10 results, and 1 pole position. He also competes in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, with a full-time commitment there beginning in 2025. This is a young driver who was on an upward trajectory, building results, gaining experience, and establishing himself as a legitimate presence in NASCAR's developmental pipeline. All of that momentum has now stopped completely, and the path back into the sport runs directly through a set of requirements that NASCAR has established with no flexibility around them. The broader message of this suspension extends well beyond Daniel Dye as an individual. Every driver in every NASCAR series, at every level of the sport, is now watching how this situation plays out. In an era where drivers maintain active social media presences, conduct live streams, and operate in a fully public digital environment, the line between personal conduct and professional accountability has never been more visible. NASCAR is communicating clearly that public professionalism does not end when the helmet comes off. It extends to every platform, every broadcast, and every public interaction a driver participates in. The garage is watching, the industry is watching, and the standard has been set. Bowman's absence leaves a genuine void at one of NASCAR's most successful organizations. Hendrick Motorsports is a championship-caliber team operating without one of its core drivers for over a month during the heart of the 2025 regular season. That is not a footnote, it is a significant operational reality for a team that expects to compete for wins every single week. Dye's suspension sends a ripple through the Truck Series and establishes a precedent for how NASCAR will respond to similar situations in the future. Both situations raise questions that are going to remain open for weeks. Does Bowman recover fully and find a path back into playoff contention? Does Dye complete his requirements, return to competition, and rebuild the reputation he was in the process of establishing? Those questions do not have answers yet. But they are exactly the kind of questions that make NASCAR more than a series of left turns and pit stops. They are human stories playing out at 200 miles per hour, and they deserve the full attention of every serious fan of this sport. If this breakdown gave you real information and real perspective on what is happening in NASCAR right now, then take 2 seconds and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more fans who care about covering the sport the right way. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe right now, because NASCAR Nation Report covers every major story with the detail and the honesty that this sport deserves. Drop a comment below and tell us which story hits harder for you this week. Are you confident Bowman comes back at full strength? Do you believe Dye deserves a path back into the sport after completing NASCAR's requirements? We are pushing hard toward 10,000 subscribers, and every single one of you who is part of this community makes that possible. Share this video with fellow NASCAR fan and we will catch you in next one.